Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and welcome actually to an episode of Game Revival, where we talk about a game or a series that is currently quote unquote dead, right? So, what it means is it's no longer being continued, it's no longer being worked on, it's not being developed. The series is dead, or the game is dead. There's no sequel, there's no installment, there's no prequel, nothing, right? Nothing. There may or may not be like a remaster or remake somewhere in between, but that we can ignore that, right? Essentially, the series is dead. No one is going to work on anything new for it, right? But these kind of games sometimes, in some people's eyes, may have been a hidden gem or a diamond in the rough. So what we want to do is we want to highlight these games, give them a little bit of a spotlight, talk a little bit about it. We're not going to recap their stories or anything like that. So we're not going to do any of that, right? We're just going to talk a little bit about it, talk a little bit about the gameplay, and if these games were to be revived, what can we expect to see from it, right? If there's going to be a rebooted version, if there's going to be a sequel or a prequel, what can we expect, right? And so the games we choose to talk about in this series, it can vary, right? Some people may not like them, some people not see them. Some people some people may have different opinions on different games. So it all matters, right? I'll do my best to try and cover each of these games. Some of these games I may be biased towards because I have played them. Other games I may not have played them, but we'll try and do our best, right? We're not perfect. We're gonna try and do our best, right? So the first game we're gonna cover in this game revival series is, drum roll, the Mark of Cree. So for those of you, if you guys have heard of it or have played it, congrats. For those of you who do not have not, this is a PlayStation 2 classic, right? This came out in 2002, 2003. It had one sequel, The Rise of the Kasai, that came out in 2005, I think. And yeah, I myself did not play this back then. It was very difficult to get information, even though the internet was around. Like getting a reliable source of information for games was like I was not aware of, right? There were a few TV programs we could see, but other than that, it was purely word of mouth most of the time. At least for me, it was, right. So I played this like much later towards the PS2 era, like much later in the PS2 era, like in its life cycle. But I really loved the game, right? I thought these were phenomenal games, right? It had a really good story. It had stealth mechanics. It had hack and slash combat systems. It had marking mechanics where you could scout and mark with your bird. You had several. You had weapon choices, and the gameplay was a very linear. It was linear level. It was a linear level based game. So like you get levels, and then in each level, it's like a straightforward path of what you need to do, where you need to go, right? There was no open world, no minor sandbox, no branching out. Maybe it did have like a minor branching. Maybe the second game, so because the second game was had co-op because you play as two characters at the same time. So yeah, maybe the second game had a little bit more to offer, but yeah, it was pretty much done with that. So the game is based on ancient Polynesian and Maori mythology, right? I'm not sure if like how much does it. It has a little bit. It has some influence, not a complete influence. It's not based 100% on the mythology, but it has. When you look at the tribal tattoos and some of the outfits they wear, you can see it's based on a lot of those kind of cultures. Um, so yeah, the game revolves around um, this ancient band of warriors known as the Rakus, who are in an eternal, who are not an eternal, that's the wrong choice of word, who are in a strife against another group of mystical, dark arts magician types dudes known as the Kasai, right? And they are trying to they are trying to control these things known as the Mark of Cree. Now, what are the Marks of Cree? These are kind of like tattoos that are come upon like certain families, and they come in the form of tattoos. So you get bearers in these families who bear these marks. So there are like 6 different marks um, I think six, right? Yeah, six different marks. And if you're able to obtain, so the premise of the story is if you're able to obtain all these marks of Kree, you can. So in the first game, they do not exactly explain as to what you can perform some sort of a ritual to, you know, gain some sort of a power, right? They don't exactly give you a proper description. But in the second game, they reveal like you can use it to summon this deity or this god known as Kree, right? So that's what this whole thing is about, right? These marks. So yeah, so PlayStation, however, in 2016 they also released not a remaster, not a complete remaster, I think, but kind of like an uh, they gave the an uplifted graphics to the base games, and they released it for the to the PS4 catalog, now available for the PS5 as well. So the games are available for you to play on modern consoles, right? So that is quite nice. So yeah, as you can see, this is the oops, I hit my own mic. So this is the intro from the Rise of Kasai. As you can see, you know, the graphics are really old. This is a really old game, so this might not appeal to, you know, a lot of modern day folks, but it was a really good game. As you can see, we have wall stealth takedowns, you know, marking systems, hack and slash combat, fighting groups of enemies, parries. Damn, I forgot how crazy the parry was. Scouting and marking systems in the form of a bird, things that you find in stuff like Assassin's Creed now on, like, you know. So it's a really good game, right? Because it had so much going with it. It had a good story, it had good gameplay mechanics, it had really good fundamentals. And for those of you who have played the game, you would instantly recognize things like Fua Uso Rahu, Fua Uso Fahu, things like that. These are moves in the game, right? Certain button inputs, you do these moves, and it has some sort of a tribal name to it. So everyone knows Fua Usu, Fua Usu Fahu, Fua Usu Rutu, these kind of things. So there we go, the Mark of Kree, the Rise of Kusai. These are the two games, essentially now quote unquote dead, right? So the first game. So basically, in both games, the main protagonist is Rao, this dude right here. So you play as Rao, and this is your adopted father Bamusu, who is available in the first game and comes in the form of a memory of sorts in the second game. So this is his adopted father, so he's the adopted son, and they have an adopted sister as well, Tati, who is also a bearer of the mark. So they are the Rakus. So in the first game, you pretty much you find out that you are the Rakus. You find out what your mission is. You go on, you know, helping villagers, doing odd jobs, working as a something of sort, or something as a mercenary of sorts, and then finally, you know, you work to fight some remnant force of the Kasai, trying to prevent them from getting hold of of all the marks of Kree, including your sister's mark, which culminates in the final mission where you go to rescue your sister. So yeah, so that's pretty much the premise of the first game. And the second game is you either, this is where co-op, right? So this is the sister Tati. She's grown up now, and she looks good. Yep. And you either play as Tati and Rao in these events after the Mark of Kree, after the first game, and then you get a prequel set of events where you play as Bamusu and his master Grizz. So that takes place in the past, and the events you play as Tati and Rao takes place in the future, not in the future, but after the events of the first game. So in the second game, you're pretty much going up against the bulk force of the Kasai, right? And this culminates towards the ending, where there's a good and bad ending depending on your final choice in the game. Because Tati, she's a mark bearer, she's also part of a prophecy where she either she ends up I'll put it in simple terms, she either helps destroy the world or she helps save it. So you either end up betraying Rao or you end up helping Rao defeat the final boss of the game, who manages to summon Kree. Amazing boss fight for the time. So yeah, that's pretty much the premise of the game, right? That's pretty much. So as you can see, like it has, like, you know, it gives you this Prince of Persia, Sands of Time vibe, with the gameplay mechanics, as you can see. So it has a lot of similarities to that as well. Um, so yeah, if you guys want to check out the game, I'll put links in the description below of people who of long plays of the game. It's not a very long game, so you can complete it in a couple of hours. So it's not too long of a game, because back then I don't think it had much of a budget to work with, right? Those games back then, like, they had to get straight to the point and stuff like that. So the games were developed by two different developers, same publisher, Sony, but two different developers. So it may look a little bit different, look and feel a little bit different, but yeah, it's pretty much the same series though. So if this game were to get revived, what can we expect? What do we hope to see? Well, if they were, I really hope they would not reboot it, because I think the first two games as it is were amazing, right? I think they should just leave it as it is. Do not touch the story. Both stories were good. The ending of the second game, they gave us a little bit of they kind of like left an opening, so it had kind of like an open ending. So there are a little bit of question marks as to what Tati is going to do with the prophecy, right? There's like a Kuzo is your spirit bird, the one who does the scouting. So he's narrating. He's the narrator in both games. So he ends the game by saying that the story is still not finished, and I will tell you the rest another day. So which means they did hint that there is more to come in the story. So if there is a generous developer who ends up, and Sony is generous as well, someone picks up this game and ends up developing, I want either a remake of the original two games, a proper remake with modern day game mechanics, modern day graphics, and the whole lot, with a little bit of branching sandbox style, so you have some exploration stuff to look into as well. I would not mind that, right? Because I think there's a higher percentage of that happening, because I don't think a lot of them want to invest in reviving these kind of IPs which have died and gone. But if they are very generous enough to give us a sequel, I wouldn't mind, because like the second game ended at a point where it seems like we were somewhat done with the Kasai threat, right? So I think that's one reason why they did not want to, if they if they did decide to close this chapter, uh, like decide to close the project of Mark of Cree. I think that's the reason, because they ran out of plots. So I guess they can bring back the Kasai in some form or manner, right? The threat is still there; it's not completely gone, but it's just that it's been substantially reduced. But playing around with the Mark of Cree, so they can start by introducing a new boss. I can't remember if there were anything else other than, because the entire focus was on Mark of Cree. I can't remember if there was anything else, like any other world beings or entities that were involved, right? So they could introduce another deity or god in play, someone else pulling the strings behind. So they can either work the Kasai angle again, or they can go in a different direction and work with a different god or being that's pulling strings as well, right? So it's up to their creation. So I would love, me personally, I would like a sequel. I would love a full-on sequel, because I think this game, it was, for its time, it was amazing. It delivered a really good story, delivered good gameplay, good man. I had dived hours into this game, just replaying it. It was fun, right? For its time, it was fun to do the stealth stuff, the brutality it had in that, chopping people, off the torso, head chops, chopping the head off, things like that, stabs, ripping people apart. It is so satisfying to swing your axe and swipe 2 3 people off their torso, right? That was so satisfying. People who have played this game would know what I'm talking about, right? So yeah, uh that is why I hope to see eventually going forward. Maybe they can definitely work on new gameplay mechanics and things like that. That's fine, that's all right. Modern games now all has all sort of combat systems in it. So I don't want them to bring the red bar back. That was quite annoying, to aim with, because you could not, to fight an enemy, you need to get in range with them and use your right analog stick to move this red bar and target them, and then you could start attacking them. Right? It was a very at that time. It see that's what I'm talking about right there. At that time, it was fine, but I think they can do better. They have better games that they can have a reference to and improve these mechanics upon. So yeah, there you guys have it. The Mark of Cree series franchise. I don't think you can call it a franchise. The game series um, came out in 2003. Last game which came out in 2005, and then finally had a kind of like a small remaster which came out in 2016. So if you guys are interested in it, you guys can go and check it out. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Mark of Cree. Like for those of you who have played the game, do you guys love it? Do you guys still like the Mark of Cree? Would you guys like to see a sequel made or maybe a reboot? Right? I'm not a fan of a reboot because I think they should just leave this story untouched. But if you don't mind reboot, do you guys prefer reboot, or would you guys just prefer to Sony to just play it safe and just make a remake? A remake is fine. A remake is fine. I have no issues with a remake. So because Sony is currently in its phase of doing all sorts of remakes and remasters, right? Which is fine, but I would love to see a sequel. So let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know if you guys want to cover any other games, talk about any other games. Sure, let me know. I'll do my best. If I have not played them, I'll try and do my best in research, and I'll try and do my best. That's all I can say. So yeah, there you guys have it. The Mark of Cree for our first game that we wanted to cover on our series of game revival. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next live stream or video. Till next time then, bye bye.